Welcome to Farm to Stable, a science-based equine nutrition podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nettie Liebert. I'm a lifelong horse person and professional equine nutritionist with the goal of helping horses and their humans create balanced diets to set them up for success, no matter what age, discipline, or circumstance. Disclaimer, the information discussed here is based on current scientific research and is for educational purposes only. Every horse's individual needs vary. This is not a substitute for veterinary medicine or nutrition consultation. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Farm to Stable, an equine nutrition podcast. And donkey lovers, this one is for you. Now, if you're like me, you have a lot of horsey friends, and a good number of them also have donkeys. But depending on where you live, they may have donkeys for various reasons. Some for companionship, others maybe for rescue, some for driving, and others even to guard herds or to guard their horses, as donkeys make excellent guard animals. But feeding donkeys is not the same as feeding horses, and I thought it would be really fun to spend some time dedicated to the long ears with some basics about feeding donkeys. Now, as we know, donkeys are not horses. They are under the same genus, Equus, but they are different species. Donkeys have 62 chromosomes, horses have 64. And they have different physiological parameters, differences in body temperature, resting heart rate, breathing rate. Horses tend to be a little warmer, ranging from 99 to 101 degrees Fahrenheit or 37 to about 38 degrees Celsius, whereas donkeys range from about 97 to 100 Fahrenheit, 36 to about 38 Celsius. So that's just one example. Now, donkeys evolved in desert areas. Their ancestors consumed high fiber, low energy plants, so they had to really get everything they could out of plants that maybe were not what we would consider, quote unquote, high quality. And like horses, they would graze or forage around for 14 to 18 hours per day and cover a lot of distance, maybe 12 to 18 miles on average. Horses maybe a little bit less in their evolution. But bottom line is that donkeys are really well adapted to eating poor quality fiber. They survived really tough environments on food that was not of high nutritional value. And it is one reason why in many developing nations in particular, they are popular work animals. They are strong, they are loyal, and you don't need the highest quality food to keep them going. And we're going to talk about that. So today, domesticated donkeys living in a more temperate climate, they are more at risk for laminitis, ulcers, hyperlipemia, and they do require some more careful management. Now, I also want to say at this point that the majority of the information I'm going to present to you today comes from the Donkey Sanctuary, as well as articles by Dr. Faith Burden and colleagues. Dr. Faith Burden is a world-renowned expert in donkey care and management and has a lot of input over at the Donkey Sanctuary as well. So I'll post some links in the show notes so you can get some more information on your own as well. So let's get to it. Donkeys are not small horses. They are very stoic. Now, you may be thinking, well, my horse is stoic, and they don't always tell you when they don't feel well, but donkeys kind of wrote the book on being stoic. They require less feed compared to horses. They're highly adaptable feeders. And as I mentioned, they evolved in that semi-arid environment with sparse vegetation, limited water supply, and surviving on some lower quality forage. So rich, well-fortified pastures and feed available to many of you listening are a big risk factor for a lot of donkeys. It requires very careful feeding. Again, obesity, laminitis, metabolic disease. Just as these things can be a risk factor for our horses, they can be a risk factor for our donkeys too. And remember some of those physiological differences between donkeys and horses. Now, there's not a ton of research out there on donkey nutrition, and you thought some of the stuff on horses was sparse. It's not as sparse as it used to be. There's even less done with donkeys. We do know a few things. The structure and the function of their digestive tract is similar to a horse, right? They have simple stomachs, they have a small intestine, a cecum, a large colon, but it appears that they may have some enhanced digestive efficiency, meaning that they're able to extract more out of less. They may retain fiber longer, giving them the ability to more completely digest fiber and again extract more out of lower quality stuff. And they might use the full capacity of their cecum and colon for more thorough digestion when compared to a horse. Now, some of this can lead to a little bit of a pot belly appearance in a donkey. And as such, there is a body condition scoring system specific to donkeys. Yes, it is not the same as the Henneke score of 1 to 9 for horses. And I will have some more information on that in a moment. But similar to horses, donkeys need their teeth examined and floated at least annually or as needed to make sure they can chew efficiently. There aren't any points or hooks or any mouth sores going on, because if they have that pain in their teeth or points or hooks or something causing sores, it's going to make chewing very painful and they may be hesitant to eat. Now, when it comes to water, as I mentioned, donkeys involved in those drier climates, so they are adapted to cope with thirst and rehydrating very quickly. It doesn't mean that you don't have to provide them water. Of course you do. The overall requirement for water is thought to be somewhat similar to horses in the range of 5 to 15 gallons, depending on, of course, the donkey's size and the temperature outside. But they also seem to prefer water temperatures above 59 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, I don't know about you. I don't like icy cold water. Some people do, but maybe I have that in common with a donkey. So they might not like icy water. And of course, we want that water source to be free access, to be clean, and to make sure that they're not going more than 4 hours without offering water. We know that horses that lack access to fresh water are at higher risk for gastric ulcers, and this is likely a potential risk factor for donkeys as well. Going back to what I said a few minutes ago about the donkey digestive tract being similar in structure and function to a horse, they are also hindgut fermenters, meaning the cecum, the small intestine leads right into the cecum. That's their fermentation vat. That's where the fiber gets broken down by the microbes in the hindgut. But the amount of energy, the amount of calories that a donkey needs to maintain their healthy condition and body weight is lower than a horse. It's thought to be about anywhere from 50 to 75% of a comparably sized horse. And I'll give you some examples of that. So donkeys maybe consume about 1.3 to 1.8 of their body weight in dry matter, where horses are closer to 2 to 2.5%. So let's say you have a donkey that weighs 330 pounds or 150 kilograms. And maybe you have a pony that weighs the same amount. So the donkey's daily calorie requirement could range from approximately 2,800 to 3,300 kilocalories per day, whereas a similarly sized pony could range from about 4,500 to about 6,900 kcal. So you can see that's quite a difference there. And that is just one example. And of course, the exact needs for the individual are going to vary. But this is just to give you an idea. So Dr. Burden published a paper in 2013, or it's actually a chapter in Equine and Applied Clinical Nutrition on practical donkey and mule nutrition. And that is where those numbers come from. So what about vitamin and mineral requirements? We know the calorie needs are probably less compared to a horse, but very little is known about exact vitamin and mineral requirements for donkeys. It is thought that recommendations for a horse seem to be okay for donkeys, and that again coming from Burden and Smith in 2013. The calcium to phosphorus ratio must be balanced. So as in horses, we like at least 2 parts calcium to 1 part phosphorus. So the same would be true for a donkey. when using things like wheat bran or rice bran as an energy source, we have to keep this in mind that we need to make sure that enough calcium is being included into the diet to balance the high phosphorus content in wheat bran and rice bran. Very easy to do. We do it all the time with horses. So if it is part of a donkey's diet, we just got to make sure it's in balance. Now, clearly, fibrous forage is key for a donkey. Coarse, low energy hay, you don't want to necessarily buy the greenest, fluffiest, softest, highest quality hay you can find, because that could put the donkey at risk for, again, obesity and laminitis, and we don't want that. Typically, grain concentrates are not needed. They're usually too rich, too high in calories for most donkeys. It doesn't mean that they couldn't potentially benefit from a ration balancer, but again, that is going to depend on the donkey. Starch and sugar concentration should be kept low in the diet, under about 15%. This is another publication by Dr. Burden. Under 10% is even better. High starch diets are very much discouraged for donkeys. They just don't need it, and it can put them, again, at risk for things like laminitis and metabolic problems. So what do you feed? How about straw? I know when you say that to a horse owner, we kind of look at you a little bit funny, but straw can be good not only for your overweight horse, that's another topic, but for feeding domesticated donkeys. And barley straw, according to the Donkey Sanctuary, is ideal. Why? Well, it's moderate in calories. It's not too high, not too low, and it's readily available, relatively moderately priced. Something like wheat straw is more fibrous and harder to chew. Something like oat straw tends to be more expensive. It's also higher in calories. So if oat straw is all you can get, you just want to feed it with caution. Now, donkeys, and you can't blame them, like fresh straw. I mean, you like fresh water or fresh vegetables and fruits. You don't necessarily want them kind of sitting around. Well, neither do donkeys. They want their straw clean and fresh and replaced daily. And one way to recycle any unused straw, if they're not going to eat it and it's been sitting there for a day, it could be used for bedding. So that's an option. About, as I mentioned, 1.5% of body weight in dry matter per day. So you can estimate, when it comes to straw especially, about 10% moisture content. We've done the math on that in some previous episodes, but of course, you can always reach out to a nutritionist to help you do that math. What about haylage and grass? Well, typically not necessary. If you want to do like a top up, a little sprinkle on top of a donkey's diet, yeah, that could be okay. And if you live in a climate that gets very cold and you experience very cold winters and the grass stops growing and is not available, it could make up a portion of the donkey's forage intake, but not more than 50%. And 50% is on the upper limit, more like 25 to 50. It should not be a larger proportion of the diet than straw. So when in doubt, straw over haylage or grass. And if grass is all you have available, just like horses, if a grazing mussel could be your friend to limit how much the donkey takes in for their own safety. Now, donkeys like some browse too. There are some safe shrubs and trees to chew on, including apple, poplar, alder, lime, ash. Limited on the willow trees. And they like toys, just like a lot of horses do, like a jolly ball or other enrichment toys. And it's something you can provide them, especially if they want to just kind of entertain themselves for a little while. I know my horse actually used to play quite a lot with a jolly ball, and sometimes now he just sort of ignores it. But that's okay. It's always good to give them the option. Now, I would be remiss if I did not elaborate on body condition scoring. I mentioned earlier that I would. So the scoring system has been developed by the Donkey Sanctuary, which again is such an excellent resource for donkey information. The donkey scoring system goes on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being very poor or very thin, 5 being obese, and 3 in the middle being ideal. So again, this is different than the Henneke BCS for horses, which is a scale of 1 to 9. I'm going to put a link in the show notes for some information to the Donkey Sanctuary site where they talk about weighing your donkey and the body condition score chart for a donkey. So visual aids, always good. But again, it can give you some idea of where your donkey might fall on the scale. So as I always preach, you want to monitor a donkey body condition regularly, especially in the spring if grass is growing and the donkey has access to it, and in the winter when that forage source becomes a little more scarce. You got to do the best you can to stay objective about it. And remember that no two donkeys are exactly alike. So you want to feel for fat cover. Visual observation alone is not sufficient or accurate. You have to touch the neck, the shoulders, the back, the ribs, the rump, the barrel. Donkeys deposit fat very differently than horses do. So it's important to get to know what's normal for your donkey. And even if a donkey experiences weight loss, the fat pads have the potential to calcify and may get firm. So that's something to note as well. Pictures are your friend. Again, if you take pictures of your donkey seasonally from a profile, store them in a folder on your phone or your computer, and you can kind of go back and check. Now, weighing your donkey, as there's a chart. I'm not going to try to explain it to you. I'm going to send you to the link in the show notes. But the measurements are similar to what you would take in a horse. You want to measure their height at the withers. You're going to measure in centimeters, though. And you're going to measure the heart girth circumference close to the front legs, right behind the shoulder, and at the base of the withers. And then when you go to the Donkey Sanctuary website, there's a chart where you can compare the height and the heart girth measurement, and it gives you an estimate of body weight, and it's pretty accurate. So, the challenge: feeding donkeys enough forage without having them gain too much weight. And remember, they evolved to eat 14 to 16 hours per day, not unlike our horses that evolved to eat a lot during the day. So, for donkeys, that poor or moderate quality grass, hay, or straw, some fresh grass for nutrients could be okay, especially in the wintertime. Again, potentially a ration balancer, but again, that ration balancer is going to be fed at a rate lower than what you would feed a comparably sized horse in many cases. Cold weather and work can increase energy needs, of course. If your donkey has a job and is working, then of course they're going to need more energy. So hence the asterisk that individual needs may vary. But in any case, we want that diet to be low in carbohydrates and high in fiber. So, what about mules? Mules also not horses, right? Mule's a cross between a mare, a female horse, and a jack, a male donkey, and you get an infertile mule. So remember, the horse has 64 chromosomes, the donkey has 62, the mule has 63. And for a lot of genetic reasons, that makes them unable to reproduce with each other. But mules may fall somewhere in between a donkey and a horse when it comes to calorie requirements, nutrient requirements, something like that. So keep that in mind. Now, this week, I didn't go into too much detail about special considerations. I think we're going to save that for another episode. But I do hope you gain some insights about donkeys. So in summary, they have a very efficient digestive system. They have lower energy and protein requirements compared to a similar sized pony. Check out that body condition scoring for donkeys that I will put the link to at the Donkey Sanctuary. Slowly adjust the diet if too thin or too fat. Again, any changes to the diet you want to do slowly. If forage is very limited, you might need a vitamin and mineral supplement in the form of, again, a simple ration balancer. We want to generally avoid cereal grains or concentrates. We want to maintain fresh, clean water. Exercise is key. Even if maybe you take your horse for a trail ride, maybe you pony your donkey alongside too, so he can get out and have some adventure time as well. If a donkey is inappetent or goes off their feed or doesn't want to eat, this indicates an illness and you need to call a veterinarian as soon as you possibly can. So we'll leave that summary there. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about donkey nutrition, and I look forward to talking more about it in some upcoming episodes. Remember, please feel free to reach out with questions to equinenutritionphd@yahoo.com, especially topic suggestions, and definitely if you want to hear more about donkeys. I do know a couple of donkey experts, and if the audience is willing, I would love to try to get them in for an episode of Farm to Stable. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy spending time with your horses and your donkeys too. Happy riding. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Farm to Stable, a science-based equine nutrition podcast. Please share and subscribe if you found the content interesting. And if you have a topic you'd like to hear about, send it to equinenutritionphd@yahoo.com.